All right, we're going to do a quick session here, and then we'll be on to our next panel. Again, thank you for your interest in today's program, and I'm delighted to talk about one of my favorite things, and I think we'll hear about it tomorrow as well, and that is the American Tailwind. So in 2018, in the annual report, we heard Warren Buffett talk about this incredible American system of economics, and referred to it as American Tailwind. And he talked about the benefits to the building Berkshire Hathaway earnings and corporate America, and you think about all these elements that go into it. So it's the corporate competitiveness, our rule of law, entrepreneurship, and just an incredible tailwind in terms of the backdrop for investing in America and succeeding at a firm like Berkshire Hathaway. And one way we measure this at Gabelli is through household wealth, right? And so if you go back to arbitrarily, I picked a year, 1971, you'll see that the household wealth was $5 trillion, and today it's over $156 trillion. So think about two pieces of that. First, you have the compounding. I mean, to go from 5 to 156, it's just extraordinary, right? But then think about the absolute value of 156 trillion today. It's extraordinary in its size. And so this is the underpinning of the American system. And if you think about this chart too, it's come through a pandemic, wars, recessions, financial crises, other elements, political. So this is a system that's endured and it's made our country great. One other thing I wanted to highlight today too is this theme that I think we're all well aware of, this generational wealth transfer, just given the demographics in the United States. And these are some of the numbers in terms of kind of the baby boomers aging, and then the pass of the wealth to the younger generations. And the Fed has talked about sort of the benefit of the American Tailwind on the baby boomers of a $20 trillion passage of wealth over time, and over the next decade, 16 trillion, so about 1.6 trillion over the next annualized decade. And if you think about the millennials, this will impact consumption, savings. There's just a different set of dynamics that are going to go on, technology, et cetera, approach to the stock market, et cetera. And so we think this is a kind of an incredible dynamic that's also going on in the marketplace, and a function of this great savings and wealth creation that occurred previously. And so at Gabelli, we think about the impacts to these major themes, and we think that financial services firms are particularly well aligned to benefit from some of these aspects. And you think about taking deposits, making loans, banking, insurance that we just heard from Tom in terms of asset price appreciation, payments, so changes in consumption, technology, demand for wealth advice, wealth and asset management, and then other specialty firms. So we think about the S&P 500 and owning a company like S&P Global, and that's something we follow very closely. So a lot of these companies are very well situated to benefit from this trend. So a couple of years ago, we launched a suite of ETFs, actively managed, and I had the opportunity as a portfolio manager to design GABF with the American Tailwind in mind. And so we've created this bespoke portfolio, 40 or so stocks, best of breed companies, some of the companies I mentioned. It's actively managed, so it is differentiated, and there's an element of credit risk in that in terms of not being in the beta product as well. And we got to ring the closing bell on the New York Stock Exchange to commemorate the starting of this entrepreneurial venture. So when people think about alpha today and what is the mindset for a portfolio like GABF, and the great companies we'll hear about tomorrow as well, and we think about American Express, trading around $230 per share, 720 million shares, market cap of around 170 billion. And when I think about this company, what I want to lend to you in terms of a message, if you think about the American economy today growing at 2 to 3%, 5% nominal, here's a company growing in the payment sector, which is 7 to 8% growth as an industry, and if you think about them being in the higher growing segments of the marketplace, comfortably thinking about 10% growth. And then when you add capital returns, repurchases, operating leverage, mid-teens appreciation in terms of their earnings. And when you compare that in terms of just a business understanding, the visibility, the corporate brand, the entrepreneurial management team, it really is kind of an incredible company with incredible outlook. And if you compare that to just owning the S&P 500, which mirrors the US economy to some extent, we think this company is very well positioned and obviously a big Berkshire holding. But again, this is an element of a company that we think will do very well over time. As we mentioned, the American Tailwind and is incorporated in our portfolio and the kind of company that we look for. And we also, it's a very durable company too. Back in the financial crisis, even though returns got depressed, they still earned through the cycle. So very flexible in terms of capital allocation, marketing, et cetera. Tangentially, we're all out here because of their appreciation for investor education, and I'm going to be one of the first people in line to get my seat on Saturday. And I had the chance to go meet with some students back in March, and I'm getting a little bit older, so generational relevance. But what I was so impressed about with these students was just how engaged they were. Their systematic savings on top of the stock market, and kind of they're disciplined about their own financial lives. And going back a few years, when I was in college, my investor education was going to, remember those Barons when they were super thick? We would buy those for $2.50, I think, on Saturdays. So that was my education, and then I used something called a AT&T long-distance calling card to call my broker, and I would buy stocks that I didn't have quotes on, and I would get confirmations a week later, and I didn't find out my holdings until the monthly statement. So that was the world I lived in. But today, we now have CNBC, we have other financial channels, we have the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. Remember that used to be closed? You had to come here to get all the education. Now we have the letters, it's broadcast globally, so it can bring in the audience. We have mobile applications, so we have real-time access, education, podcasts, YouTube, Chris Bloomstrand, we can get on our favorite YouTube channel, and you can hear about it. So it's just an incredible environment today for education, being aware of what we're doing. And so when you marry that with the American Tailwind and the eighth wonder of the world, Albert Einstein coined compounding, as Tom Gaynor talked about, we're able to take advantage of the most valuable thing that we all have, actually, which is time. And when we go back to those students and you think about them versus me many years ago and trying to invest, it's just an incredible situation today. And I think, as Charlie Munger said, patience, is also one of the more redeeming components to benefiting from this. And so I think with our portfolio, GABF, and what we set up, and being out here and being as a firm and being involved with this education, that's what we've tried to put forward today. We're very excited about our progress so far as a fund, and we hope to have more people go along and benefit from all the lessons that we've learned out here today. So thank you again for taking this time. I will be around after the conclusion of this. We have our representatives, so if you have more interest in this offering, certainly happy to answer your questions as well as emails. So please let me know, but thank you again for the time this morning.